Welcome to The Old Man and the Three with JJ Redick and Tommy Alter, presented by Cash App. This is episode 8. We'll just call this the Emergency Pod NBA Boycott. We're very fortunate to be joined right now by a player inside the bubble, my former teammate, my friend, Landry Shamet from the LA Clippers. Landry, what's up, bud?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. This will be a non-normal episode. We're not going to talk a ton with you. We're not going to have a draft. We're not going to do mailbag. We're just going to talk about basically the events of the last 24 hours. Take me through just your emotions from when you saw the video of the police officer shooting Jacob Blake in the back 7 times through about an hour ago when the players, along with the league, decided we're going to keep playing these playoffs.
Right. Obviously, I think the biggest thing that I've noticed with continually seeing these things is there's almost a sense of, it's like a numbness that kind of comes over your body. For me, it's like a cloud's following you. You don't feel right, and it's upsetting, it's unnerving. So obviously seeing that video, it hurts. Talking with people, it hurts. And it's frustrating. And I think obviously Milwaukee made a bold decision to do what they did, but they did it, and we stood with them, support them, and you can't fault them for protesting and reacting the way they felt was necessary. And so, that happening, and then the spiral of things that resulted from that, obviously, played into the same kind of cloudy, foggy, numb type feeling that you have hanging over your head. So in general, that's the feeling. It's been very, very confusing on a number of levels, as we kind of talked about yesterday. Confusing, you feel a little bit of helplessness, like, where are we? Where are we going? What do we do? What's the best thing to do? I don't think a lot of people know, and that's what we're trying to actively find. But the biggest thing, man, is just the numbness and feeling in your body that, like, this isn't right, and you just want everybody to be able to see that and feel that and understand that.
I think that the helplessness is an important thing to touch on, because as athletes and as professional basketball players, we all went down to Orlando with, I believe, the right intention, and it was to play good basketball, but more importantly, use it as an opportunity to speak, to act, to raise awareness on all the things happening in our country. And let's just take a look at Breonna Taylor and how much we've talked about Breonna Taylor. And then a couple nights ago, Attorney General Daniel Cameron is speaking at the Republican National Convention, and he's just basically straight up lying. That to me was a moment of anger and a moment of helplessness. That we're trying, we're all trying in this bubble, and we're just not getting the results in the outside world from politicians. The helplessness, another component of this, though, is something you and I briefly touched on yesterday, and something that Draymond talked a lot about today on social media, something that Swin Cash touched on social media today, who works for the Pelicans. And that's just, why is the burden on us?
Right.
And specifically, why is the burden on the black athlete? Right. Why is the burden on LeBron? Why is the burden on you, a 23-year-old?
Right.
And that to me has to feel incredibly frustrating, and it is a feeling of helplessness.
Yeah. And like, even just listening to you talk about that and like, I don't know, and just starting this conversation, like it just incites a feeling like in my chest, like a trembling, like it's hard to explain. And I think you know what I'm talking about, but with that, what you said, it's like, I had a conversation with one of my buddies. He plays baseball, and he made a comment saying, because I obviously told him about the Bucks and how they quit playing, and asked him if he heard anything from baseball or whatever, and he was like, well, I don't think it's as prominent because baseball is kind of a predominantly like white league. And I told him, look, like, or he didn't say a white league, but there's not as many, African Americans in baseball, Major League Baseball. And I told him, I said, man, that's the point. I think that this should be like driving other people to step up. Why is basketball right now? And it's a good thing. It's a blessing and a curse. We have so much power and attention, and all eyes are on us right now. Why are we answering questions that a lot of CEOs and executives and higher up people, aren't even getting asked? Like, why is it all falling on us, the black athlete, the most predominantly like black sport? Like, why can't other sports organizations? And I think people are trying to do the right thing, but it feels like you and I said, like just the burden of it all falling kind of on us.
We should also just mention, because sometimes I forget to do this, but I know we've talked about it a ton, Tommy, on the podcast. What the WNBA is doing and has done is also remarkable. So we're not just talking right now about the NBA athletes specifically, but WNBA and NBA. And I would also, just to touch on something you just said, the CEOs and people in positions of power in business that aren't getting asked these questions, that aren't being told not to go to work. Oh, you shouldn't go to work. Something Draymond brought up today. They're the ones with the political power. They're the ones with the political influence that can hopefully affect some sort of policy change with politicians. Tommy, I know you were getting ready to chime in, so please jump in.
Well, I was going to say two quick things. First of all, besides the WNBA, who we've highlighted on the show, also the Brewers last night. I mean, one of my takeaways from this sort of on a macro level is what you guys did yesterday is going to reverberate around the entire sports world for a long time. And it may just set a precedent moving forward for just, there's a sort of a disagreement whether this is a protest or a strike or whatever you want to call it. But terminology aside, this is a thing that will, we will see the after effects on for a long time. Landry, I guess, one question I had for you, just on a very sort of specific level from a TikTok standpoint, as much as you can say, is everything moved so fast yesterday. It felt like such a long day, but it also moved so fast. How were you able to, between the meetings, the team meetings, the overall meetings, how are you able to sort of process everything that was going on?
To be really honest with you, I didn't process much of it until I was able to lay in bed at night. And I think that's something that, obviously, like you said, things are moving really fast. A lot of people had to step up and try to, figure out what the best thing was for us to do. But one thing that, I think we didn't fully take into account was how high emotions were, how tense the situation was, and how this was really the first time that we as a whole, as players, have been able to sit and process and talk about, have really, really good dialogue collectively in the bubble about all this, So I think that's one thing we're not giving ourselves enough credit on. Like, this is tough. Like, we're not politicians. We're athletes, and we're citizens. We're of this country, and we have opinions and can talk. But when it comes to handling something with this much political, weight, I think we're just doing the best that we can. And so one thing that was really apparent was that emotions were high, and that I think guys today feel a lot better after we got to come back to our rooms, decompress, things slow down a little bit. because yesterday was a whirlwind. I mean, you're from when the Bucks decided they weren't going to play till 1:00, 1:30 when our last meeting got wrapped up or whatever. It's like we didn't really have time until all of that stopped and we were able to just slow down a little bit.
Landry, you're on one of the teams last night that had essentially voted to not play. I think it was you guys and the Lakers, if I'm not mistaken. When you came out of that breakout meeting with your team, did you get the sense that was going to be more the norm, that most of the teams were going to vote against playing, or did you feel like you guys were maybe going to be one of an anomaly essentially?
To be honest, I didn't really know, because the kind of the vibe there was just how, because there's so many different opinions. I mean, you put that many people in one room, there's going to be different perspectives, and that's a blessing and a benefit of having these conversations. So, and to be fair, like that vote wasn't us saying we don't want to, play basketball. It was just simply a poll of what we thought was best to do, and that's what came out of our team. And to be honest, I felt like, and still feel like, maybe there's more people that kind of might have felt that way, but given the setting and the amount of your peers around you might not have been as blunt and open about, yeah, I don't want to play, straight up. So that was my first thought. But yeah, it was just, I didn't really know, to be honest.
When you went to bed last night, because you and I spoke last night pretty late, but when you went to bed last night, did you feel like there was going to be a continuation of the season, or did you think it was over?
I felt like it was so. I didn't see any way we were going to get to anything productive. I'll be honest. I didn't feel good. I told you that when we were on the phone. I was like, I don't really feel good. I don't feel confident about what just happened. But sometimes I think it's important to go through stuff like that in order to maybe find some clarity and seek some clarity, which I think a lot of guys really did. I really believe that, after we were able to go our separate ways.
So I'm obviously not in the bubble. I'm sitting on my couch, simultaneously following along on Twitter and watching television. And it felt like the media was in the room. I mean, you had guys like Shams live tweeting what players were saying in the meeting. I don't know. I feel like there needed to be some layer of protection. How do you think that happened?
Well, I mean, it was pretty. One of the first things I noticed walking down there was there were cameras, and you've been in the bubble, you've seen the designated media personnel that are on campus on site, and they're all standing outside of the ballroom that we're about to walk into. And ballroom door, like those doors aren't like, they're paper thin, dude. You have eight, 9 people out front with cameras and with big ass microphones, and like, I mean, what do you think's gonna happen? And then obviously, like, let's be real, there's people in there on their phones. Like, there's probably some people that it might have gotten out, but ultimately, you're allowed. Like, media was inches away from the door from this meeting that we're having, and so I mean, I don't think it's rocket science.
I was wondering if maybe like somebody had just like called up Shams and then like left their phone on in their pocket or something.
Just laid it on the floor. Yeah.
Is it weird? Is it weird to be in a situation? I mean, for both of you guys, this is obviously a very unique situation, but is it weird to be in a thing where like you're having a conversation and then it is being tweeted to the world right away? And when you're kind of like, well, I don't know if that's how it happened directly. It's like it within 10 seconds something is said, and then it's out there, and you almost feel like, how can you control what is being sort of distributed, internationally?
Yeah, I'll touch on that just because I obviously wasn't in there last night. But, when we had the Zoom calls earlier in the summer about whether or not we were ever going to go to Orlando in the first place, I got on the call and there's a red dot in the corner saying recording. CP gets on the call and he says, "Hey guys, just so you know, there's multiple reporters on this call. he had found out that there would be some guys, so be careful what you say. So I would assume to what Landry said earlier, there probably are more guys that weren't necessarily outspoken, but maybe feel like it's the right thing to not play. So yeah, I think everyone in that situation, Landry, you can speak to that as well. Everyone in that situation would definitely be cognizant of anything they say could end up on a Twitter timeline.
Right. And especially, seeing it happen that quickly. And then I think obviously too, like having cameras in your face when you walk out of there. And, it was, I don't know, I think, and it just heightens it because the two teams that were first seen walking out of the meeting were mostly us or the Lakers, and then we followed shortly after. So it's like you take what people are reporting and then you pair that with the visual. You got cameras of it, like you can kind of paint the picture, whatever picture you want to paint, just with those two things right there. But it's difficult to feel like you can be open and honest and completely transparent when you're watching it being live leaked and you're exposed. Like, it's just, I think that makes things difficult.
I want to bring up one thing specifically about Jacob Blake and Wisconsin. Tommy, you probably know this as well. So Ramona Shelburne tweeted out an article from earlier. So apparently, there was a police reform bill introduced in the House legislature on June 20th, and they haven't met yet to vote on the bill. And, part of that is training de-escalation. And you have to just think that potentially one person's life, if Jacob Blake's life is saved, if one person's life is saved, then passing a bill like that is worth it. Landry, before we let you go, I'm going to read a quote real quick. This is from Howard Bryant. I just want to get your guys' just thoughts on this. So Howard, the senior writer at ESPN, and this is in sort of response to a lot of the people saying, well, I'm never going to watch the NBA again. This is Howard. Underneath it all, the passive-aggressive questions about what walking out will prove, how people will never, ever watch the NBA again, is threat. Questions less in search of illumination, but designed to diminish the players, to question their authenticity and disavow them of any thought of self-determination. There is no citizenship beneath their tank tops, and even less humanity. You're here to entertain us. No, you're literally here to entertain us. That's your job. Underneath that layer of threat is more threat, which is to say you better be grateful there are people willing to watch, because if we don't watch, you're back to being nothing. The message is, of course, to remind these black players of how precarious their positions are, to let them know, in case they forgot, how thin the margin is, that one misstep, injury or arrest, backtalk or protest can put you back there with the rest. Never forget who you owe. I think there's an incredible amount of truth to those words, and truth to the threat of what people are actually saying when they say, shut up and dribble, stick to sports, I'll never watch the NBA again.
I would say, one other point to credit, not just to the two of you guys, but, to players up and down the league, the amount of actual work that active NBA players have done over the last year is pretty astounding. I mean, I know this, I'm working with the guys over at More Than a Vote. And so with those guys in particular, just today they announced in Houston that they're going to turn the Rockets Arena into a voting location, which is going to open up 15 days before the election. But arenas up all across the country are going to be opened up. We just launched a Power the Polls group, which is going to help train poll workers, which is going to touch on some of the things that we talked about with Stacey Abrams, in terms of voter suppression. But it's really amazing, everything from last night aside, it's really amazing how proactive the entire league has been from a player perspective. You guys all have sort of done the opposite of shut up and dribble, and that's going to continue. And I think it's just showing your power. It's your power to actually affect change.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, to that point, Tommy, I just want to say, like, I'm incredibly proud to be an NBA player. I'm proud to be part of this league. I'm proud of my peers. I'm proud of everything that we are doing and we have done. Yeah.
With you, Jay.
Yeah, and this is to be continued. This is a process. This doesn't none of these things are fixed in a day. None of these things are fixed in a week. But everything that is happening and continuing to happen is it is awe inspiring. I think what you guys did yesterday and last night, and a lot of people have said this across the world, not just in the country, is awe inspiring. It is you are taking your power back. And you are saying you are more than athletes. You are more than entertainers. You are more than celebrities. You are people that are going to stand up for what you think is right. And it's completely unprecedented. I mean, I think everybody, to your point, Landry, it's a weird situation for everybody because, we're living through history, and that's weird.
Yeah, right. It's not normal on any sense. Like, at the time that it's happening, it's tough to fathom. But I truly believe, like, the biggest power that we do have is our voices, and collectively, like, how many eyes we have on us right now. I know it changes from person to person. The pressure I feel isn't the same as what a LeBron's feeling, but you do feel it. I have people texting me, saying, really proud of you, like, continue speaking what you believe. And then you have people, on the other end, trying to combat you and say why you shouldn't be doing this and that. And I know that changes the higher up the ladder you get. It gets more and more intense. But nonetheless, us as NBA players, we all feel that same, the burden that me and JJ are talking about. And it's just important to continue doing what we're doing and not succumb to these standards that we, just because we're not politically equipped to be these politicians and activists and all this stuff. Like, we're still U.S. citizens, and we're still people in this country, and can make an impact and have an impact. And like JJ said, man, I know I'm only year 2, but it's been, it's frustrating, but it's incredibly, like, honoring to be able to be a part of, of history. Like, this has the whole world's eyes on us right now, and I think it's just important to try to continue to capitalize on that.
Andrew, before we let you go, how do you balance the basketball component with the social justice component moving forward? How do you find that balance? Because one of the things you said to me last night, and it's so true, and Sue Bird talked about this a couple episodes ago, is like, we grew up loving to play. We just want to play. We just want to do our job and do what we love to do. For whatever reason, politics has come to us, and you've left us no choice. We now have to have sports and politics mixed in. So how do you find that balance going forward? And how do you find that comfort level of focusing on doing what you love?
Well, I'm sure. I mean, you've played for Doc. You've probably heard a lot of the same things that I've heard in my short time with him. But one of the things he says is he hates when people say, "Well, I don't involve myself with politics," and he says, "Well, you bet your ass that politics will involve you." So, I mean, it's true though. Like, so it's. You made a good point of how politics has found us, but it finds all of us, really. I mean, it affects everyone. And I think we're just in a situation where, we're more able to be more vocal, and we're seen more and talking about it right now, especially. So in balancing that, man, like, the last 24, 36 hours it hasn't been balanced. It's been all on one side. And I think that's the challenge, because it's hard not to let something like this completely, take over, kind of your persona. But I think it's just continuing to take advantage of opportunities that that present themselves. Ultimately, basketball makes everybody here happy. That's what we want to do. But when there's an opportunity to speak on something that we're passionate about, and right now there's a lot of that, to continue to take those opportunities.
I think it's remarkable, that the two teams that stood up the most had the most to lose. And, you guys and the Lakers are both two of the title favorites, two of the title contenders. I know you guys on your team have great leadership amongst the players and great leaders with Doc. So just continue to do what you guys are doing. I support it. I support you. You're one of my guys, man. So I appreciate the time. I appreciate the time, brother, and thanks for the insight.
Yeah, no problem. Appreciate it, JJ.